What's up, y'all? Welcome to this episode of Music in the Minor League. Today we are joined by Bart Roberts, who, as he says, is the Chief Vinyl Officer at Sweet Spot Audio and Records. One of the really important things for independent artists is finding ways to get their music out, be it Bandcamp, streaming networks, and also it's great to have independent local record stores that will carry records from local bands, be it just regular stock or consignments or anything like that. So we felt it was important to talk to someone who ran an independent record store and just so happens to, do consignments and put out records for locals in the store to sell. We are really appreciative of him for, full disclosure, for putting our record in his store. And really, we just felt it was someone great to talk to, man. Plus, Bart's fun to talk to. We've enjoyed going there and talking records and music, and some friends of ours turned us on to the store, and he was gracious enough to let us do an in-store. So we want to get all that out there. We're not doing this as an advertising thing, even though we both kind of have a relationship. He was someone we felt comfortable talking to about the role of independent music and vinyl records in the current musical landscape, and how they make it and how we make it, and how we really do work together to kind of make things work. It's important to have bands who put things in stores and let their fans know that's where they can find them. It's important to have stores who will recommend local artists and actually play their music in the stores, so when people are just browsing around, they might hear it and go like, hey, I need to get that. So it was a great conversation. We hope you'll enjoy it. Before we start, just very, very little housekeeping to get out of the way. As always, if you like the podcast, please share it with a friend. If you want to be on the podcast, please hit us up. We're always looking for new people to talk to. We'd love to have a chance to talk to you about your music. As far as shows, I think our next show will be May 17th in Port Neches, Texas, which is Kim's hometown. We play at Neches Brewing. And then the next night, we'll be doing a show for Sergeant Records, which is a Scotty Frazier's charity that he has. And that will be over at Saloon Door Brewing in Webster. And we'll just playing a short set as part of that. It's basically doing a cool little locals deal where a bunch of people are coming in and playing a few songs each and just kind of exposing people to all the different music in the area. And that's really it. We go on tour in June, but until then, we're not going to get to that yet. So we want you to tune in, listen to Bart, and see what he has to say, man. We'll see y'all next time. Oh, yeah. And before we kick it off, we have this great old song that just popped in my head when we started doing this episode. This one's from our friends, the Grizzly Band, who, if y'all heard Chad on a previous episode, y'all have heard of. This song's called Scratch 45s and just kind of puts you in the mood, man, from listening to old records.
Saturday night
All right, y'all, welcome to another episode of Music in the Minor League. Today we are here at Sweet Spot Records with Bart Roberts, who is the owner, and I guess that's it, just the owner.
Just the owner.
And
your local guide.
The proprietor.
That was it. It was too polysyllabic for me.
Founder.
I was like, whoa.
Not the founder.
Oh, not the founder.
I'm the curator right now.
Curator, that is.
Ooh,
That
I
is
like that.
musical curator of Sweet Spot Records. It's a big part of music, especially now that the number one physical form of music that's sold is now vinyl. So, independent record stores are popping up in more places now. I mean, in college, it was like Cactus Music in the old building,
Texas
or Sound
Tapes.
Exchange,
Or Black Dog Records.
yeah, and there was Vinyl Edge, which is still around, but I mean, they were all like in the city. Like, I think Vinyl Edge was the only one outside of the loop. So, now we got something like that on the south side. So,
Yeah, we're coming up in the world.
I know. So it's an important way. And we thought it'd be cool to talk about, the state of what it's like running a record store, like, how you come across things, what, it's a no-brainer to buy like the 28 variants of the new Taylor Swift record, but how do you choose other inventory and things like that? So, first off, man, thanks for taking some time to talk to us today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
So, I guess to kick it off, how did you end up as a proprietor of a record store?
I've never worked in a record store before. And if you would have told me when I was a teenager, this is what you're going to do one day, I'd be like, okay, I'll take that bet. That sounds great, But I came here, Sweet Spot's been around since 2010. And I started coming here in 2015. I was getting back into records. As a teenager, I never got rid of my records. And I just always hung on to them. And finally, one day, I think I was in Barnes & Noble, like around 2012 or 13. And I was surprised to find that they had records there. So I just started getting into it. And I was looking around for the closest store. You talked about Cactus having to go in. I love going to Cactus. I still do. But I found Sweet Spot and came in. The owner at the time was an older couple, retired. They were open, I think, 4 days a week. They originally had started out over on the 45 in League City, and it was more of a higher end stereo equipment stuff. I would come in all the time. They eventually sold to a couple of guys. They put the place up for sale. And I thought, man, I would love to have a record store. That would be awesome. But for whatever reason, I just held myself back. I didn't do it. And I was, I kept thinking, I should have done that. And then finally, about 2.5 years later, those owners sold or put the store up for sale. And I thought, I've got to do this or I'm just going to regret it the rest of my life.
It's now or never.
Yeah. And I don't regret a single minute of it. I mean, it's been a learning experience. It's not difficult if you love music, and it's the greatest job in the world because I get to bring joy and happiness to people through music and getting them stuff that they want, or maybe turning them on to something that they didn't know about. Because there would be times where I'd be here in the store, music would be playing. I'm like, who is that? That's, I've got to have that. A lot of times I'd take things right off the turntable, take it home.
That's awesome.
So
Nice.
That is super cool, man. Yeah. You always get the excitement. I remember being a kid, especially if I listened to a lot of off the wall things. So it was always going into the stores, like CDs or records or whatever, like, okay, where's the, getting the giant book to open. And whenever I got to go pick up those records I'd purposely ordered through the record store or whatever, was always like the coolest day. You got my stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always love, and I know a lot of people do too, you go into the store not really looking for anything, and you just start digging through and flipping and seeing something. And those are times that I always think, oh, that's going to a record store is the best part about it.
Yeah, dude. I remember, like, we talked about this before. Like, Dan and I used to go to, like, Sam Goody or whatever, and you'd look at all the different art, like, and something would catch your eye and be like, I'm going to get that. I'm going to buy that. And, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it was just that whole adventure of, I don't know what this is going to sound like. I'm going to get it home, and discover it and see what it's like. And I think that's something I think people miss out on because you can stream everything online. There is no more of that finding a hidden gem.
Well, and along with that, having somebody's complete work at that time, whatever the album was, through streaming, you might occasionally hear a deeper cut. But I love and I just put a record on, play one side, flip it over, play the other side. And there are good songs buried in there sometimes. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes the hit was it. And there really wasn't anything good about the rest of it, in my opinion. But, playing it all the way through, you get a better sense of who the artist is.
Totally. Yeah, I think people miss out on that. If you're so much now, the way people consume music is singles.
Yeah.
We've talked about that in previous episodes about like, you kind of miss out on the whole, like, we just put out an album and I think every song from start to finish works together, and they're great individually, but when you put it on from start to finish, it has a feel to it. And I think we did a good job really trying to finalize that and make sure that it worked in a certain way. And so I think, you do a service for people to actually take that whole album home and really get to understand it, what the artist was wanting. So.
Yeah.
I was just reading Barrett Martin's book on Screaming Trees, and he was talking about how, like, even when he left the Screaming Trees, like, apparently Mark Lanigan was really good at, like, dude, this one ties perfectly. He's like, I still would send him my albums, and, you know, even when we hadn't talked in, like, years, I'd be like, hey, man, I've got this new record. We can't figure out the sequencing. Here's this. What do you think? He's like, the next day, he's like, I love these songs, and this is the sequence. And, you know, it really does. I mean, there's so many records that you kind of got to ride that. It's like a live set. You got to kind of ride that wave. You can't come out with all these big songs and just do all your mellow songs.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that because when I was listening to, especially to y'all's record, I like that right away that it just kind of grabs you, you know, and it does. It feels like your record, the new one, feels like a good mixtape. I mean, like there's an art to putting the mixtape together. And it's, you can't, you do have, I feel like a good one would be you come out strong, maybe back off a little bit, or just change the mood, not back off. I don't think is the right
No,
word.
but I think bring down the thing. You don't want to, like, you know, it's a record's like a marathon. You don't want to sprint the entire first 5 songs. It's like, let's bring it back.
So when I was listening to your last record, I was wondering how much thought did you put into it? It felt like you did.
Oh yeah, Sam gets obsessed about like the order of songs and picking out like what the album, what's going to be side A, what's going to be side B.
Yeah.
What order, everything. It's really important. It is.
Well, I know, I'm just laughing because I'll send it to y'all. I'm like, what do y'all think? And you'll come back and be like, you're wrong. Here's why. I'm joking, but there's been a couple times where I'm like, yeah, I guess that would be a better, like, no, I think we start side A, side B with this. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I don't think it was me who decided on, like, Ship's Will on side B. I want to say it was Kim that was like, just start with this kind of just one instrument coming.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
I think that was
messages. But it was like, wouldn't it be cool? Just the side kicks off with just like the intro from the fiddle, and it was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It grabbed
someone
me.
gets us. That's good.
The vinyl format's cool too, because it's like you're doing 2 sets. It's not just like, okay, everyone's gonna sit down and listen to this
Yeah.
straight through.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know if I'm remembering the right album. I think it's Full Moon, but the Tom Petty, the cassette, I think at some point it says this is the point in the record where you flip it over.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's what is it? I think it's running out. Which song is that? I'm trying to remember because I used to have it on my drum playlist I'd play along to, and every time at the end of the song it would be like, this is the point in the album. I think it'd be like, hello CD listeners. Yeah, this is the point.
That's
in the
what it
album
was. It was on the CD because
where you have to get up and flip
Flip
the
it
record over.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
That makes more sense.
That was my moment to go before the next song kicked
Sure,
in.
it's going to get crazy here.
But that's like one of the records I learned to play drums to. So yeah,
Really?
the cool like do-do. Yeah.
But I think that's also the kind of the cool thing about vinyl too, is that you have to be engaged, because when it hits the end, you have to go over there and do the work. You have to flip it over and start it for the next side. It's unlike the CD where you can just put it on repeat and it just all day long.
Yeah. But I think, and this is probably getting too nerdy on the vinyl end of it, but there are new pressings that they spin it at 45 because it's better sound quality, like acoustic sounds, that sort of thing. There are other companies that do that, but it winds up, you know, like Steely Dan, the self-titled I have, and it's on 2 records, and it's like after 2 songs you got to get up and flip it over. So it's almost like, yeah, it sounds good, but I'd rather go a little bit longer, you know.
Right.
Yeah, there's the threshold of the audiophile, because I was here in the store. There's a De La Soul 3 Feet and Rising where they did it all on 7 inches, and it is like I bought the thing from Discord, like our first like 6-7 releases. I think it's the 6 releases plus the demo, like their first band that they never pressed, and it was like, yeah, dude, I'm gonna listen to this, and then you're like, it's like 3 minutes per side, man. Like
You just pull up a chair next to the record player.
well, I know that's really it. Like sit on the floor right in
right.
front of all the speakers.
Yeah, with your headphones on like we did when we were kids.
Even worse is there's a Rancid box set that has like I think 60 or 70 7-inch of all their hits, and they look cool. And they're all on this nice colored marble press, but man, that takes dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah, long play.
I want to say like I have and I could be wrong. Someone's gonna be like, you're wrong, but the new the reissue of the Circle Jerks Group Sex when it came out, it's still like the entire record side A, and when you flip it over, it's like all these outtakes and things, because like the entire record's like 13 songs in 19 minutes or something, and I was just like, that's side A.
Yeah.
And then we'll put all this, you get the extended special edition with all these bonus takes, and it's like, cool, out of print stuff, and it's like, that's side B.
Yeah.
So, you can do it where you're like, that whole record side A, or I remember buying cassette tapes, where it was like A and B were the same thing because the album was so short. It was like, let's put the tape on both sides.
Well, and I like a lot of jazz, and there were times where you would have a song that could fill up the whole side, and there was something about that I loved,
Yeah, kind of like I remember being blown away by metal when I was a kid, where it was just like, oh, Echoes is the entire B-side. This is crazy. And yeah, but it also helped with live albums too, because you got like that whole, you could throw in all the between song banter, because it was just like,
yeah, I got the reissue of the Chris Christopherson live from Gillies, and yeah, there's a lot of that. I think that's what they did to make it fill the entire album. Like, we need to put a lot of this in between stuff. And it's like, okay.
But that's a lot of the fun with live albums, just all the weird stuff they say or do, or things in the middle of songs, like just throwing in things they yell out. Yeah,
that makes me think of Sinatra at the Sands. He and Count Basie were playing at the Sands Hotel in Vegas, and there's a lot of interaction with the audience. You almost feel like you're part of it, And of course, he sounds amazing live, and it's fun. The other thing I like about live albums, it's like which one is it? Song Remains the Same. You hear Stairway to Heaven so many times, you know how it all sounds, and then you hear it on that album, and it sounds fresh. It sounds like you're hearing it again for the first time.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of live albums to me.
Yeah, I like a lot of it too. Like one of my favorites was always Neil Young, Time Fades Away. So it's like that one where like in the middle of the tour, we're like I feel bad for blanking out, but the one guitar player from Crazy Horse had OD'd going into the tour, and like Graham Nash, Stephen Stills came out to help on the tour, and it was like this whole terrible tour for them. But then when they're doing all these recordings, the album came out because some really cool versions of songs, just because it was, hey, we grabbed this dude just flying out because we need someone for this show, or like it's going bad and we need this. You got some really like, some magical moments you wouldn't have got otherwise, which
yeah,
I know he fought re-releasing it a long time because it was like such a dark time, but it's a great record. I mean, just can listen to it. I highly recommend. And of course, Neil Young did a lot of them, like Live Rust and all this.
Yeah.
Like he was constantly like, here's how they sound live. And, they always grow, so it's always cool to get those records where you're like, okay, cool, that's what the song sounded like.
So this is a question I have for you guys. I've been asking people recently, who were the better harmonizers, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young or the Eagles?
That's more of a Kim question.
I don't know. I feel like everyone in the Eagles was awesome at it, and there were so many of them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be really honest with you. I did not hear a whole lot of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young growing up.
Well, they didn't have a lot of as many albums together as the Eagles, but
man, like, Graham Nash and David Crosby together, man, those two were just like, they were talking about from like the first time they met, it was just instantaneously like,
That's cool,
hey,
yeah.
I found my spot. And they would all do that. So I'm partial to them. I mean, the Eagles sound great, but you'd also have, even when Neil Young was there, like they would do these weird like switching spots, and one of them would suddenly be singing this and the other one would like, okay, now you sound better on this high harmony. They would like switch where they were going. And luckily I've met Kim and gained the vernacular to where I'm like, okay, that means that's where they did this. I thought it was just something they did. I was like, that's cool. But now it's like, oh, dude, no, they changed a lot of stuff up. So, but I mean, the Eagles were great at it too. But also maybe I like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and with or without Young, like way more. So
yeah,
than I do the Eagles. But I'm also not an Eagles hater. I just find myself listening to that more.
The reason why it was on my mind, I get Deja Vu in every so often.
Yeah,
and I had it on a couple days ago, and I was just thinking it's just such a blend. But yeah, I just loved it. Love it.
I've never heard it. I'll have to listen to it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
you got homework, kid.
Yeah.
I always get good recommendations from this podcast.
It's good. It's a hell of a record. I think we have it. And yeah, it's a great record. Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, that's like one of those. Deja Vu's like one of the, what was the one Frampton Comes Alive? Where like, dude, you were issued this in the mail.
Gosh.
Like
somebody was asking me today for Frampton Comes Alive.
They couldn't just find it in the garage sale?
I know. I was like, go to any garage sale and you'll see
Saturday
it. Or
in the garage
estate
sale,
sale.
I guarantee you, if you hit 5 different estate sales, you'll find 4 copies.
What's funny?
That and some kind of Neil Diamond record.
Oh, dude, totally. You can't go wrong with that. Come on now. You put that on and people just gravitate. It's good.
No, it used to be one of my, back when, I was even remotely worried about what I listened to. I was like, but then I'd be alone, like, yes, put on the Neil Diamond record.
Well, but then the movie
I
Saving
like
Silverman
Diamond.
made Neil Diamond cool again, so it worked out fine. Because they had a tribute band called Diamonds in the Rough.
Yeah. I always loved what Wasn't it Will Ferrell who did that? Like the Crossroads or what, Storytellers VH1 thing where he did Neil Diamond and he made all the songs about really dark things.
I think you're right, yeah.
Where it was like, this is about time I picked up a hooker and murdered. I was all messed up on coke and ended up murdering her.
7-day bender.
And it's like Sweet Caroline.
Oh my God.
And you're just like, oh wow, okay. So yeah, that was a. But yeah, man, Neil Diamond was killer. But yeah, I'm trying to think of some of those staple records. That Hard Promises from Tom Petty, I felt like I used to see that everywhere.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, The Waiting Rules, and then
That is a great song.
Yeah, the record's okay. Record's okay.
Yeah.
It's not one of their best records, but man, like, yeah, The Waiting is like, oh, dude, it's the best song. And then
It's just such a great, like, lead riff that cuts through that, like...
You know what's interesting is that, there are a ton of Tom Petty records out there, but from, running a store that's primarily used records, I rarely see any Tom Petty come in.
Really?
Yeah. And as soon as they do, they turn around pretty quick.
That's awesome. As far as I'm sure, Tom Petty's like one of the few artists that hit like 2 records that were like, okay, these records were great start to finish. Damn the Torpedoes and Full Moon Fever were both like, okay, threw a perfect game there.
Right. It happens.
Like, cool, there's like 9 hits off of one record where you're just like, wow.
That's insane.
Now,
Try doing that today. Good luck.
Well, Taylor Swift hit top 10.
Yeah,
1 through 10.
Re-releases.
I know.
Yeah, they were good when they were released the first time, so like they should hit again.
Aren't they fixing to redo, or they just did one of like In Utero from Nirvana? So I'm sure
They're going to remaster it.
I'm sure it's going to be in the top record again or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, what was it? Dark Side of the Moon stayed on the Billboard charts for years.
Yeah.
And didn't even drop off. I think it was like 7 or 8 years or something.
Nah, then when Roger Waters did the reimagining thing, both of them jumped. The original jumped back up and the one version he did.
Wow.
Just stacking checks.
That's the thing. It's like, why would he do this? Like, yeah, I get it, remember, but it's also like, there you go, man. There's some more money,
Yeah.
New records are selling okay, but a new version of Dark Side of the Moon? How can we go wrong?
Yeah. Well, they had the 50th anniversary last year, and they released a couple things, and then now there's another one that's coming out Friday, and it's like a clear version and remastered, and of course, sign me up. I'll take one.
Right.
It is funny, man, because like the vinyl variants are getting crazy.
Oh, dude.
Which was funny because I'd read an article with Billie Eilish, where she was complaining about that, and then John sent me a thing yesterday like she's doing her Spotify fan only variant in Coke bottle clear, just like y'all. I'm like, well, yeah, we're the only band to ever do that.
Because we're trendsetters, okay? Look, Billie Eilish defers to us for things, okay? You heard it here right now.
Anybody can order a Coke bottle clear vinyl.
I know, that's why I'm joking, but it was just funny. John and them sent us that as like a joke, but it was just kind of like...
Or maybe she saw a copy of our album and was like, wow, that's really cool.
I don't think it's as bad. I'm kind of poking fun at her for doing it, but, at least it's like, here's this. We're going to do 18 different color variants, and you should buy all of them.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
Yeah, but, it's like, think about, I don't know who the first was. The first one that I remember that doing a lot of different variant covers was The Police, Synchronicity.
Okay.
There must be, because you think of it's generally, like red, blue, and yellow, and they all have different strips of photos. But those change up, where the yellow is top or the blue is top. And then there are, I don't know, 5 or 6, probably more, of each color has a different arrangement of the photos. So there's probably 40 or 50 easily.
Oh, wow.
And they even have some that don't have the color, and they're just bronze, paint stripes across.
Golly.
And of course, every time one comes in, I always look to see if I have it, because it's not an expensive record,
Right.
$10 maybe. So I'll take it home. I probably have more copies of that record than anything else.
Wow. I wonder how expensive that is to because it's not cheap to do a variant.
No, I mean, if you started doing multiple colors in the same run, it's not that bad.
Well, no, I was also talking about like album cover variants.
Oh, that would
sounds
be-
expensive.
Well, you're getting into major label. You're getting into
Yeah.
Police, like it's whatever.
Yeah.
We're already printing out. We're printing, you do 30 different covers, and you're already hitting the print house maximum for the cheapest rate. So, we had to do 500,000. We just broke them up into 100,000 ship, versions.
Yeah.
They're
Wow.
just like, well, whatever. We're going to charge you 10 cents or back then, maybe like 3 cents per print regardless.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us 500,000.
I say you've kept us busy for a month and a half, so thank you.
Right. I just remember being a kid and like, what was it, Less Than Jake used to do, and their drummer had Fueled by Rama, and he would just make so many different 7-inches and things they did. I remember talking to him one time where he's like, well, I want to make sure no one but me has everything we've ever released. So I just do anything, and like, yes, we'll put a song on this. Yes, we'll do that. Yes, we'll release this, like 150 copies of just this 7-inch of this one song.
Wow.
So, you know, the Melvins are that way too. They do a ton of weird vinyl variants and things like that. They're a band you could get into and spend ungodly amounts of money to collect
go broke.
7,000 different versions, prints, mixes.
This is the UK release. What does it even mean?
Well, it's where you find the people that are, you know, collectors and hoarders and such, and they're like, dude, it's kind of putting them, the inmates in charge of the asylum. It's dude, I can do any of this. There are already dudes who would have, like, this is their home, stores, like their home collection, and it's like, I can do anything I want to do. Yes, let's do it.
Challenge accepted.
So that's a good thing. So before you started the record store, were you kind of a pack rat, or just?
Now that you have a store full of vinyl.
Let me lay back on the couch here, and you can analyze me.
I know. I'm just. But
I'm a collector at heart. Yeah, I mean, it started as a kid collecting comic books. Did baseball cards for a little while. But records, it didn't really get out of control until I had a store, I think. I mean, I felt like it was manageable. It's still manageable, but, I have probably 5,000 records in my personal collection.
Oh, wow.
And, it's not counting anything here at the store. So, yeah, I mean, I like it because I like to listen to it, like to have it. I always say if it's alphabetized, it's not hoarding. So I think you're okay.
I agree.
like
It's a proper collection. Yeah.
Because my collection is alphabetized. So you see that, honey? It's not hoarding. It's a collection.
Thought about getting shirts made up like that.
I think you should.
Yeah. No, it's the problem I have is it's a good problem, but things will come into the store. People are selling records all the time, and I'll see something I'm like, "Ooh, I don't have that," and then I'm like, "That one's going home." And so for the first year, like I took a lot home. It's slowed down.
So are you at least like, so let's say a record comes in and you're like, oh, I could use that in my collection. But then like before you can take it home that first day, a customer comes in, hey, I'm looking for this record. Really, have you ever been like, yeah, I've got that? Or do you like, oh, when I get one, I'll let you know?
Yeah. Well, usually I'll say, I just got one, but I'm taking it home.
Okay, at least you're honest.
I try to be upfront and say, look, I know how this looks too, but it's mine. The next one's yours if it comes in.
That's solid. That's respectable.
But because a lot of times, so I have a behind the counter kind of a stack of things to be priced next. And most customers that come in regularly know that they can look through it. But there's always that sort of right of first refusal. If I had forgotten to pull something out of there, just right at the beginning. So sometimes they'll say, is this available? And I have to say, yeah.
That's solid. That's respectable.
It really, it's funny because I don't want to mention who it is, but not in this town, not in this area necessarily, but there's another record store, has amazing selection. And the person who runs it, like just about everything that's out is not priced in their store, which drives me crazy. So I would take some things, you take it up to that person for it to be priced. And there have been a couple times where they would say, oh, I don't think I want to sell this. And I'm like, why are you doing this?
Am I walking through your personal collection right now?
No, it's like, it's not your home, is it?
That's hoarding.
So
that is hoarding. That is not a good business model.
I'll sell this. No, my precious is.
Well, I don't like that. I don't like the whole idea of like being a gatekeeper like that. Like, put the price on there.
Yeah.
If I don't fit the criteria of what you think this album should go to, whatever, dude, I'll pay the $40.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. Just At least he's honest.
Well, I will say I do have it's mainly classical. I do have a large collection of classical music here that I just acquired, and I shouldn't say no one. Very few are looking for that, and so it's so large, and it's like, I don't want to sit and price all this and have it sitting in the back, taking up space. I just put it out for the occasional one that comes up every so often. How much is this? And mostly they're $2 and $3, so I say, let me look it up. I look at the condition, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine, to have records that aren't priced. It just, it's like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, because even Hot Topic has prices on their albums.
Well, yeah, of course.
I mean, none that I've heard. Maybe
See, I'm trying to think.
They got some good variants at Hot Topic.
They do. Okay, look, I'm coming clean. Yeah, you know what? I sometimes stop through there just to see what they have.
Yeah, you don't have
I've
to.
bought some records from there. My child went through her goth period. I was like, oh, dude, new Tim Berry record. I'll take that.
That's a good price.
It's one of the records that made me weary of the two colors pushed together, because right where they come together, and one of them there's a skip. It's like happens on probably like about 10 revolutions in a row. It's like short, but it's like pop, 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 right on the seam.
Right. at the
So I'm like,
that
oh,
would
it
tick
didn't
me
squish
off.
together all the way. So then it made me like, would y'all do that? I was like, I don't want to do that. I want one solid piece.
One
same
color.
bottle clear.
Well, Jack White's done some amazing stuff with his pressings and all the color variants, and I mean, it just and they sound great.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying
No, I think it's
that
just
it
a
can't exist,
bullshit
but-
thing. Like, it's just me being paranoid because, one time I went to this store and something bad happened, so I could go to any of their stores. It's just, it's not real. It's just like an urban legend that lives within myself. Because, yeah, I mean, Jack White and them were doing stuff like for the Sleep reissue. They like squished, like, was it marijuana leaves in the middle of the record and stuff, and it still plays.
What did you see the Alice in Chains 30th for Jar?
Has the flies in it.
They've pressed actual dead flies into the vinyl.
Yep.
There's a space, and I don't know if they move around.
They move. Yeah.
And they sold like I don't know how many, 100 or a very low number on through their website. And I haven't seen one in person, but I have a customer who said that they ordered one and they should be getting it. So
Well, if one comes through, can I put dibs on that if you don't take it?
it's gonna go home with me if I can
Well,
if I
I'm
can
just
wrestle
saying,
it from
yeah, that's if you come across a second
the
one.
second one. Yeah, you
I'm
get the
going
next one.
I'm going on
You
tape
get number
now.
2.
That's
yeah.
going to be like a thick record, too.
It's not.
Well, it's-
I
yeah,
heard-
it's-
yeah, I saw it.
I mean, flies are pretty
I think
chubby
they're-
dudes.
Yeah.
Oh, it was cool. Like when I saw it, I was like, "What a creative way to do it." I'm sure Peter would have a problem with it, but whatever.
Well, they did that for a CD case. The jewel, on the side, they had some, not actual flies, but I don't know.
Well, they have those ones that have the blood that moves around inside of them. So there's,
Yeah.
it's been pretty
I
common.
see, what is their
Weird.
Night Cobra local band did theirs where it looks like a saw blade.
Yeah.
Vinyl's the one thing where you can get really wild with how it comes out. Like you,
That's the cool
got
part
an
about
idea.
it, man. Like I think people are coming around. Like we're seeing like an evolution with that because I love the part like as an art person, just the fact that when you get vinyl, you get the big picture. Like you can see the artwork, right?
Yeah.
But now people are getting into really like putting things into the vinyl more and like having fun with that. So I just think it's really neat to see kind of the change and stuff.
Yeah, you're seeing picture discs more prevalent now, like where it used to be a really rare, but more people are doing that. Where it's like, dude, it's like the album cover on the album.
Well, and picture discs, they've come a long ways. Originally, they were thought of as not being that good sonically.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, you probably wouldn't find any audio files saying, "Oh, yeah, they're great," but they're better, and they are cool looking. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, me on my consumer grade, like $99 Audio Technica thing, it's like I'm not hearing the like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's good enough. When I'm doing the dishes or Sunday morning doing stuff around the house and putting on records, it's good enough. My
Good
picture
enough.
disc is fine.
Right.
It doesn't skip like the 2-colored.
Piece of garbage.
Before you started the record store, I mean, did you have any involvement in any sort of music in the industry before that?
No, that was a funny thing too, because when I was looking to buy the store, I was just kind of looking around, seeing about, maybe taking out a loan and that sort of thing. And they said, well, you don't have any experience. And I said, I know that. I said, it just, when I first graduated from college, I went to work in television news. And so I've kind of always been around like audio equipment and things like that. But it really, there's nothing I learned from there that we do sell equipment here. So, I know basic operations on some of that stuff. But it's just been, every day I'm kind of learning something, either a new artist. People come in all the time and say, do you have this, or whoever it is? And I'm still surprised on, finding out new stuff, getting turned on to new people or old people.
Yeah, it was wild. When you were here last time, I picked up a Samantha Crane record, which is like an old one of hers.
Really?
Yeah, and which is like a friend of a friend, and she's like a killer singer-songwriter, like out of Oklahoma, yeah. I was like, oh my God, like, is this the same Samantha Crane? Like, I've never seen this record. It was like probably 10 years old or so, I was excited to get that.
Yeah, I always love it when people say, I can't believe you have this record.
Yeah.
And it's some obscure record that, I didn't know anything about.
Well, and that was one of them, because I was like, whoa.
Yeah, so that's cool.
That was even before she kind of, right when she started to get somewhat noticed, and it was like, dude, somehow this record ended up in Houston.
Made its way down. You were supposed to have that record,
Webster.
apparently.
Yeah.
Guess so.
Like the universe had a plan, sir.
It's going on Sunday morning.
It was wild. Blew me away. Another thing that's interesting that I find that I think helps is cool is that you do the weekly online show where you sit down and kind of go through records you have in. And
Yeah.
Does that help with sales, like kind of community engagement, get people more?
Yeah, it does. It's also, it got started before I took over the store. the guys would do during COVID these live shows because people couldn't come in or weren't coming in as much, but they felt okay staying home, and they would do that. So I took sort of my television background, and that's why it's called Live at 5, because I used to set up live shots all the time for the news.
Nice.
And so what happens is what I consider the 20 most interesting records or things I think people would be interested in, I pull those and we do a quick little sell. And it's a good core group. A lot of times the people that buy there don't like to come and look in the store. They've told me I get overwhelmed when I see everything. I don't know where to look. I don't know what to do. And, here you are holding these up saying, a little bit about something of the record. And so they like that. And, you kind of, after a while, you see somebody online or, in videos, you kind of start to feel like you know them a little bit. And what's funny is my son, who does it with me, we're both pretty introverted, but I feel comfortable talking to people. But I'd rather just sit, by myself instead of in a large crowd of people. And so I like doing those. And people will come in and they've seen us on the video a lot. And so they'll start talking to him like, they know him.
Oh no!
Like his name is River. They'll say, "Hey River, how you doing?" And he's like, "I don't know you."
But you're famous.
That's that paranoia that hits. Like, how do I know this person? How come I don't remember? They're like, "Oh no, I saw your stream." It's like,
Oh, good.
I'm not supposed to know you. Okay, good.
But you're not one of those stalker ones, are you?
Right. But I think that's cool, man. I think that's nice that you're kind of taking it, and for those people that, like you said, that are overwhelmed when they walk into a place, you're helping them kind of map out what they would like. And I remember when the music stores were a big thing, and like FYE and Blockbuster Music, they were the game changer because you could go in and listen to music.
Yeah.
And they would have like 10 state set up, like 10 listening areas set up, and they would have music picked as well. So you could take what you want to listen to, but they'd also have some of their picks. And that was always kind of cool because you might find something that you didn't even know you liked, so kind of, because again, walking into play, like even I love music, man, but walking into a record store, I feel dumb because I'm just like, well, what do I listen to? And I'm like, well, 3 of my albums are here. Like, I know what I play, but it's just so hard. Like it's a lot.
A lot of it's just looking, for me, there's still to this day, especially in used record sections that are like moderately priced, like that just looks cool.
Yeah.
And, probably for me, it's about, I say it's better than a coin flip, but, it's like, okay, that sounded kind of what I thought the cover would make it sound like.
Yeah.
Then occasionally it's like, ooh, that was not at all what I thought that would sound like.
What I was getting from that album art.
Well, and it's owning a store, it's interesting because I see records that I've seen all my life that I've never listened to. And so sometimes when I'm trying to, because I play music nonstop pretty much when I'm here, I'll pull something like, I really should listen to that. I should see what that record sounds like, and then, have it, at least know what it is, be informed on that.
Have you had like an iconic record that you never listened to, that when you finally listen to it, you're like, this is crap? Like something that just like, you're like, man, I'm really not digging what they put out here, and everyone else really likes it.
I don't know. Nothing comes to mind right off the top of my head. I'll probably think of it later on tonight, and I'm laying in bed trying to fall asleep.
Right.
It's this one. Damn it, it's that one.
I'm calling up right now. No, I don't. I like a lot of music. I pretty much grew up on very, classic rock. I liked Kiss as a kid because it freaked my parents out.
Oh, yeah.
And little did I know how tame it was compared to what was out there and what was to come. But, yeah.
So that's kind of a trip. That's one thing I was looking around here and looking up front. There's a lot of like shows like how long like the punk scene kind of kept final going in the 90s and 2000s when it was still between, because you've got like Wipers reissue, like I guess Minutemen from the 80s,
and
Lucero, Shelter, like old hardcore records.
Yeah.
So it's always cool looking around and being like, oh man, like there's all these bands. You start thinking like, it was one of the few places you saw records on the merch table when I was a kid. It's like, you went and saw any big band show that was just like, we got CDs for sale. But then a lot of these punk bands are like, we still got records. You want our record? We did a 7-inch.
Where did I put this giant CD at?
It was just kind of weird how 7-inches were back then. Because I remember going to see tons of bands where it's like, here's a 7-inch. Like we did one song on this side from us and one song on the other side from the other band playing tonight or playing next week. It's like, you should buy this. And it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have a 7-inch split from the Svetlanas and the Dwarves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, because we were label mates with Svetlanas for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it just happened. We would get like these care packages from the label, and that was in there one day. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I want to do this one day.
Yeah, that's cool.
We will not do a 7-inch. That'll be people have to get up and flip
You
it.
have to do a
easily.
lot of now. Pressing's so expensive now, man. 7 inches are hard.
You're not making money off that.
You got to do at least like 1,000.
Anytime somebody walks in with records to sell, and they say, I've got a bunch of 45s. Are you interested in that? Usually it's like, I'll look at them, but they just, as vinyl has come back, that really hasn't,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. The singles have not come back.
It's the work involved. It's like I was, lamenting of having 2 or 3 songs on one side. Now it's just that one. But
right. Those are for DJs.
And you can get singles. You can walk into like, any place and you can pull out your cell phone and get a single.
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm someone who's really into music, I want to listen to the whole record. I'm going to go buy an entire record.
Yeah.
Right.
And plus pressing, man, it's not any cheaper to have the lacquers made and sent off. They're a little smaller, but still.
Yeah.
Instead of first record's the most expensive. Then when you do get up to 1,000, it's like, oh, that's not too bad. But when you're realistically moving 300 units, 500, it's
1,000 seems so far away.
I know. We were buying 1,000 CDs from all our old bands. And
oh my God, the boxes.
Remember years ago, like, anyone got any art projects they want CDs for?
You need some coasters?
Right. We can do this before I put them out for the dumpster. But
dude, but the guys with the price point, man.
That's
it's so much cheaper per unit to do 1,000.
Yeah, it really was.
And you have those big dreams if they're all going to sell.
No, a lot of it was just like, well, if I buy 500, it costs the same as 1,000, so I might as well get 1,000 just in case. But you kind of already accepted, like, I'm going to have to provide storage for half of these forever. Forever. It's the music. That's the business side of the music stuff. Damn it, there was something I had. I was
going to ask you about, if you don't mind, your last album. How long did it take you? How long did the pressing and all that? Because I've heard that it's gotten a little better.
He's been doing his research.
Well, I'm trying to think if this one was better. I think it was comparable.
It was the same.
It may have been a few weeks, maybe a month faster, because I think this was end of September to March, end of February. So that's what's there, October, November, December, January, February. That's 5 months. The other one we got them in November, because it had to be December. We got them in June.
Yes.
So it was probably, but then also it's unfair because it got Christmas in there and stuff. Yeah. So it was very maybe between 5 to 6 months. So, so we did first get where I plan to go in depth on this, but yeah. So we used Gold Rush out of Austin because we were like, we did them last time and it was a lot. But
it was also post-pandemic.
Right. It was in the middle of it. We had the weird freeze. Like, okay, the reason you said it would take 10 to 12 weeks, or no, I think back then it was still like 16.
It was 16, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, and instead you took, 26 weeks?
Yeah.
Well, it's because all of this, and it's like, all right, okay, that's fine. And then with this one, we're like, well, still, we can go drive and pick them up. So many places, I'm always weary of, you use the internet. It's like, if I put in for a quote from this place, and they won't just give me a quote. I have to email and talk to a sales guy who's going to call me and email me and start spamming me. And it's like, I don't want to deal with your record company. I'm not going to even attempt. Yeah. So I was like, well, fine, we'll go with the devil, And they were like, oh, dude, 8 to 10 weeks, 12 at the most. And when I got it, I was like, you get me all the stuff. We'll probably have them before Christmas. And this is in September. And I'm like, oh no. So we started panicking, dude, we're just going to have to start sending these to people 3 months early. I don't want all these records sitting in my house for months. And then finally January hit. And it's like, hey, we still got test presses. Grifters and Chills did their double record and they got their test presses in 4 weeks. And we're 3 months in and we're like, hey, buddies. Yeah. And it happened quick. And it involved us throwing a tantrum that, I always try to avoid. So I keep telling people, it's you should not reward the people who behave poorly. But yet you force us to behave poorly before you'll do anything. It's not a good thing. So they got them to us, a week before our release show? Yeah. And I seriously had to drive to Austin 2 weeks in a row to pick up the test pressings, approve them that night, got home that night. And put them on. I was like, all right, that one sounds fine. This one, all right, you listen. I'm going to bed, but you listen since you're off tomorrow and all that. Then I seriously got up at 5 a.m. to drive into Austin to be there the moment the warehouse opened to grab our records. So, there's a lot of fun that goes into that. And I know other people from other pressing plants. I know a few have had issues, but I feel like the times are getting more within reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we were but then we've also heard multiple stories from people. Our friend Jared does guitar tech work for Union Underground, which is like this new metal band that was out of San Antonio. And same thing, same pressing plant was like, oh, dude, we got you by the time your tour starts. Guess you didn't have their records when tour started. And then Joel at the Old Quarter had someone come in and was like, hey, the reason we agreed with them is because they promised us we'd have them before this date. And it's like a month after this date and we still don't have them. So
yeah, and you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. You're like, oh, you're Texas, like, but you're like, oh, thanks, guys.
But they're also making all these gold records for people to use. And if you look at their Instagram, they're doing all this stuff. They're not. With ours, they tried to say it was the people who did the plating, because creating a record's a pain in the ass. So you go in, most of your pressing plants don't actually do it. There's very few places that make the plates.
Really? I thought
So what you do is some of them do it in-house, most of them contract out. Like URP does it. I might think it's a different company, but it's like across the street out in Nashville and stuff.
Yeah.
But normally, so you get it, you got to cut the lacquer, then you have to spray it with like nickel and do all this stuff to make the mother. Then you have to squish it to make the plates. And there's a whole, I'm not saying it 100% correctly, but I know it's lacquer to making the mother, which is the metal one, and then you do basically the father, I guess they're vice versa, the ones that are the pressing plates. So then they have to get those in, and then then you get to make sure they did it right. And they said that's what was the issue, that it was taking. Apparently the company wasn't getting it to them,
and there's no way to really check on that, I guess.
No,
right, exactly.
You have to take them on their word. And at the same time, you're starting to see all these bands that are way more notable who are like, oh, we're so stoked, we got our records in and we're doing this, or we did this special one-off version of this record for a special contest, sponsored by this place. And it's like,
well, we had, wasn't our previous album, wasn't it delayed because Taylor Swift suddenly decided she was going to do like 4 variants of hers?
I don't think that was necessarily it. A lot of that coincided. Yeah. A lot of people got pushed back. Like when Adele did hers, all her different ones, like it hit the entire industry.
Basically, Taylor Swift wanted to beat us because she knew that our fans, like, they might buy some of her albums, but as soon as our album hit, they were going to be not buying her stuff anymore.
But that's kind of the deal. It's been an independent thing for so long. The major labels weren't touching, and then once they flooded the market, and we're suddenly like,
the money's good. Yeah,
our big people want this, and they want to do these, gatefold 10 different 7 inches. So all of a sudden, it's like, cool, that's 10 different records they have to plate and do all this. So if it takes, I think it takes way more than that, but say it takes 2 hours. Or, even cutting a record, every record place cuts, that engineer has to go through, they do a little piece on the outside, like that works, and they have to manually cut the thing. So they have to listen to the entire album and cut it. And if it ends up okay, if you get 100% of them right, you're like, cool, that was still, I spent 40 minutes cutting this, not including the timing. And they're doing one per side. So each lacquer is just one side, like A and then B lacquer. And they put that in, and then you go through and you do all this stuff. And then that's every record. But if you're doing some of these records, different variants, different things added on to certain ones, you're doing a different one each time.
Yeah.
And the plates are only good for about 1,000 units. Yeah. So they're having to replate over and over and over and over for every time they're doing this. If you're running multiple machines like they are, you're doing all these plates. So, one major label artist can take up like an entire independent record label's roster worth of time.
Yeah.
Just for that. So it pushes everyone back. And especially during COVID, when there were no income streams, everyone's suddenly like, dude, we're going to put out a record. We're going to put out a record. Yeah. We're going to put out a record. And, we were one of the jackasses that were like, we're going to put out a record. We recorded that thing during the shutdown, and we're like, well, whatever, let's do it. So for that one and then this one, it was like, oh, we got all the time in the world. We'll put it out. The good thing was we did have the foresight to go, all right, we finished it, and we're going to do all these singles, and we're going to put it out 6 months later. And yeah, man, luckily we got it like a day short of like the period.
And the whole time, I'm sure you're just thinking, oh, great. Is this going to come together? Or?
There was a plan B that we had to execute.
We did, and we ended up going through disc makers to do, like, they have a cheap version, and it's like you don't get to see it. There's no test pressings. You just send it off, and it comes in. And for the most part, it's fine. They showed up 5 weeks later to our doorstep.
Yeah.
So that was cool. They're like thin records, like the 140 gram. You don't have a spine label on the thing, but that was our panic, where it was like, we don't have an album release show, and there's no albums.
Did you like the way it sounded?
Some of them they did not. I did get money back from. They did honor that. They sent me some money back because they packed some of them terribly and they were horribly warped. So there were like 2 boxes of 40, and then they took the other 10 and just kind of broke down a box and squished them in with the other ones.
Yeah.
The sales guy in his regard did not sound, when I described to him and sent him a picture of this, he was not thrilled. And he was like, we need to talk to the warehouse about this. But I think somebody, but again, that comes into they're more of a broker. So they're like,
Yeah.
I'm sure warehouse guys, like, we've got to get these out in as little shipments and cut as much cost as possible. And the dude who's got to listen to me is like, what the hell are y'all doing? Mm-hmm. So, but they did reimburse us for the 10 out of the boxes that were, like, you see, I sent him a picture, there was like a hump, and it sounded interesting because we're like, oh, these sound great. And then you got in, I was like,
Yeah,
like, it sounds like there was like a weird phaser or something on it.
We thought we were losing our minds there for a minute, but
That said, if we'd have done 300 copies through them, it would have been roughly about 60% of what the other place cost. But you get certain things out of it. And again, like, they're thicker records and we got to choose colors instead of just black or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what made
Any split colors?
right now.
No split colors.
But that's the thing, for them, it all went up. And I mean, this pressing cost us I think it went up about 28%, the cost of the initial pressing, which we, unfortunately, you got to pass on. So it's like this record cost $5 more than the last one because we had to pay an extra $1,000 to pressing. So yeah, it comes in. It's funny how when you're working on such short margins like people like us are. But I mean, that's where the scary part is. As we get to less and less of the crack, flaw, and fray records, like, oh no, we're going to have to repress, and that's a lot cheaper. But once we get down to about like 50 copies, it's like we're gonna have to repress 100 or so because it may be 6 months to a year before Gold Rush sends us our repressings.
Right.
So would you use them again?
You have to you're kind of locked in with the repress, or else you start over.
Oh, really?
The thing with pressing a record is that first like $1,200 is record one, and then it's like, oh, like $1 after that or less, and then printing's gone up so much now, like, so it's like, oh, you want these things made, and when you do the spine labels, apparently the computer things have a hard time, so they have to kind of hand fold that part. I don't know. I'm sure maybe they've created something since then, but that used to be back when me and my friend Tom had like a small record label, that was an issue. If you did a spine label, then it costs this much more because we have to pay someone to bend it correctly, where the automated stuff will just bend it wherever.
It's interesting you say that because I've noticed recently, or I've been noticing more often, that sometimes people bring in groups that I don't know, some smaller, independent artists, and there's nothing. I look at the first thing I do, not first thing, but one of the first things I do is look at the spine just to see who it is, to identify it, because mostly it's usually just artwork on it.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that there have been some more and more popping up that don't have any spine identification.
That is a major. It's like when you're doing a pressing, that can be hundreds of dollars saved if you're like. But then also it's like, that's the fear though. It's like, yeah, I'll save this on the front end, but if I give a record to like a place that does like if but if you gave KPFT a record, there's no spine label, they're just like, they don't even know it's there.
Right, yeah. I can see that because you have so many, and then when you see it, then it cues that memory. Okay,
right.
That's, yeah.
Even if you're specifically looking for it, they're not going to look for it. They're like, man, I'm going to have to dig through like all these spine label lists. Yeah. So there's things like that where even people at home, it's like, oh, I forgot I even had this record because it was just squished in. So that's the main thing that hits. It's like, oh, okay, we should pay the extra money because we won't, unless you're just doing a safety order, then you're like, just whatever, just get us whatever costs less because it could be another 6 months, but Gold Rush will get us another record.
It's funny you were talking about Taylor Swift taking up the oxygen. Local group Valhalla Cinema, they come in here some and sent me a song, one of their new songs. I think it's called, I don't know the exact title, but it's like Thanks Taylor or something. And then the song is about how it's taken them so long to get their record pressed because of all the Taylor Swift.
That's great. I wrote a song about it.
But yeah, I mean, that comes into an issue. People don't realize, I mean, it's cool they get it, but at the end of the day, it goes back to the Billie Eilish thing. It is kind of clogging things up and taking up more bandwidth than you kind of deserve or that you should take. Just even you may deserve it because of being the biggest star in the world, but it's like, come on, man, like by doing these 35 different things and redoing all this, like you're affecting probably 150, 200 other bands by doing this.
Well, and how many of those albums are actually going on to a record player versus being put on a wall?
Oh yeah, no, it's completely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I accept that happens across the board with us too. I mean, I'm always just kind of like, well.
What surprises me is I saw a stat not too long ago about half the people that buy vinyl records don't even have a record player. And after that came out, I'm like, people that would come in, I'd ask them about that, like, oh no, I don't have one. I might get one sometime, but I just like having that physical object and supporting them and then putting it on the wall. And it just blows my mind because you have such a great, thing there that if you on the right system, it's going to sound so good.
Yeah. A lot of it, especially if you're doing gatefold, it's like, I want to sit down and look at the lyrics. I'll cue it up on Spotify or whatever. And I can still dig through it and be like, oh, you still get that connection, but yeah.
But also it's the smell of records. Like they have that just, I don't know what it is. Like, like if you're in the attic and you're getting close to an old box, you're like, there's records in that box.
Yeah.
Like it's just, we know it.
Yeah.
It's like an old bookstore stuff too, man. It's like that. There is a whole, it's every sense outside of just auditory. Like you're getting
olfactory and the touch of it. And
it feels this way.
Scratch your nail across it.
Way.
Oh, well, you don't do that, right?
No.
That's bad.
Sniff them all you want. Don't scratch them.
Oh, think about how many kids saw the first rap videos and were like, dude, yes, I'm taking mom's old 45.
Mike Helfenstein, my father, can probably tell you that he lit my ass up one time because I took his AC/DC record into that.
But yeah, there were plenty of kids who just left records in the dust.
To my credit, it was Back in Black, so it wasn't like it was a great album.
Dude, I'm not against Ryan Johnson.
But he's no Bon Scott.
Well, Bon Scott has moments.
He had big balls.
No, yeah,
You ruined a vinyl.
I didn't do it on purpose. Sorry, Dad.
But no, but that happens, and there's things where just accidentally, like, oh, that was part of the fun. It was like, oh, and then sometimes you're listening to that record, you're like, oh, it's about to skip, and then you're like, that was the time I did that.
Yep, that was me.
As long as it doesn't keep skipping in the same place, that's when it gets old. Just as long as it's like, pop or something, you're like, dude, I remember when I did that. That was stupid. But yeah, I think there's just so much that goes into it, to the touch and the feel and all of that it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a whole experience.
Yeah, you don't get that from your streaming service until Apple Music figures out a way to send synths through the speaker when you play.
That's coming.
And sensations.
I just said it out loud. Watch, it's going to happen.
It does have the
You'll start seeing those ads on your phone soon.
Right.
So.
Every streaming app I've ever had does have the ability to suddenly cut off.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what happened? And it's just like, no, you're done. And I'm like, oh, it's like the power went out at the house, but it's just like here in the car. Like, what happened?
Yeah. I can't stop driving to turn it back on, so it's just done.
Audio still skips. Like, you get... There's occasional times where it's like...
Machine.
Oh, what was it? I used to love this song by this old British punk band, Conflict. But you could tell whoever made whatever the version was that ended up on streaming must have been made from a record or something. So there was a moment where the song skips.
Really?
And I was like, oh, it must be that way. But then an alternative like the same song, but on this record, on the actual record instead of the comp came out. It was like, oh no, it doesn't skip at all.
Oh wow.
I'm like, so they actually just let the skip stay on. Like, oh, it skipped a few times. You're like, and then it was like, oh, dude, that's kind of weird the way they did that. And then it's like, no, that was just somebody was like, yeah, we did the record to digital, and it was like, it skipped, whatever.
Well, that's like I have
the internal
not a name brand turntable, but it's a USB one that I can plug into my computer and stuff. And when I first plugged it into my computer and I was playing a record, it automatically tried to download it. Like it was like, we'll record this to your hard drive. Do you want us to filter it? And I was like, what? It takes all the pops and hisses out of it. And I was like, no, why would the hell? First off, no. Secondly,
That's
hell
how
no.
vinyl sounds.
Like it's a vinyl. I don't. Come on now.
So I have to. Okay, here's the thing. I get all records of all kinds of condition and quality in here. I wish they were all perfect.
Yeah.
But ones that repeatedly skip, if I know, then I just toss them.
Yeah.
But, some are going to have more surface noise than others. And for certain records, I just can't take that. Like Pink Floyd, because they're so dynamic that they can be just whisper quiet. And so any surface noise on that just drives me crazy. It's like nails on the chalkboard. But sometimes I'll put one on. Somebody will say, do you have Pink Floyd in this case? And I'll say, yeah, this just just came in, but I haven't graded it. I go put it on. We're listening to it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, this really doesn't sound very good. And I'm thinking, I wonder if they like it. And I said, well, what do you think? And they said, no, I like it. It reminds me of, my childhood or whatever. And it makes me feel nostalgic. And I said, just so you know, they didn't record it that way,
Right. That's not part of this.
That's not how it's supposed to sound. But if it's okay for you, then it's okay.
But it's also just shows how, like, when we look at stuff, I have to kind of step back at times and go, like, no one else will notice this.
Right.
And you can play it for somebody. They're like, oh, this is great. And it's like, not everybody comes in. It's like, it's one thing I hate about recording music as we've got into like doing production ourselves and things like that is I notice things now.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, dude, like every time on this record, bass records, I used to feel bad, but I was like, you can tell when the bass player's up on the E string because the bass suddenly gets very like, it's like, and I'm like, you know how much time I spent trying to like fix that on our record and like destroy the bass tone to just have it be like this, and everyone does it, dude. Like I wasted time, but it's just things where it's like I'm ruining it because I'm getting too immersed in it.
Your critical ear needs a break.
I know. So there's times where it's like maybe everyone else won't notice this. But then I can also be snotty about it. Like, it's right. No one else would notice this but me.
They always say you never finish anything. You just decide to stop working on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never done.
Yeah, you have to make that decision and just walk away from it.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing that helped. Like during the shutdown, is Eric Andre did an interview with Mike Patton when they were talking. I didn't realize that Eric Andre went to like Berkeley, jazz bassist, like does all this stuff, like ran down the middle of the interview, like, dude, this is my bass. And he's like, dude. And I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, dude. He's going off. And from Mike Patton, talking about, he goes, we have like a time limit, like with every record we ever did, like Faith No More, Mr. Bond's like, it's done on this date. And it's like, because I would still be mixing like the first record we worked on if I was allowed. Well, no. What if we just, no.
Oh my God.
And it's like, it's that. We start just twiddling with things, and it's like, I think it's, you gotta go like, I think it's done. Walk away. Send it to someone you trust and be like, it's done. It's where, look, we have John Stoll. So it's like, John, how's it sound to you? And then sometimes he come back and be like, it's not done, dude. Like, you hear this here? And it's like, oh.
He found that one thing I thought I covered up.
I hear this, and it's like, you hear it too? I thought I was just being crazy. But it's also helped. So as I'm complaining, there's also cool things we start listening to records like, oh, they did something weird in there. Mm-hmm. Or you can hear someone talk in the background to a lot of records. That was a cool in utero thing. I was watching an interview with Steve Albini where he was going over like the microphones used. And he was talking about like during vocals for that record that Kurt Cobain didn't like to just sit there. So he had like a nylon string acoustic and he would just quietly strum with his thumb. And they're like, there's points if you listen to the record before songs kick off, when he starts singing, if you really listen with headphones, you'll hear him strumming that like nylon string acoustics. Now I'm like, I got to go back and listen to hear all these weird things. So a lot of people do weird stuff like that. And
yeah.
If you start learning to listen, you're like, wait, that's something different.
That's cool.
So, it's a good thing. Headphones are always a great way to like open up the record into a whole new way.
Yeah.
Just kind of went off in the left field there.
I like how we've been doing most of the talking.
I know it really has.
He put that one question out there, and I was like, and here we go.
4 hours late. While this will release after the fact, but this Saturday will be Record Store Day.
Yeah.
How is that? I mean, I'm always interested to see how that affects Record Store. Does it help bring people in? Is it obnoxious?
It's not obnoxious. And it does help bring people in. It's challenging because this year every year there's over 300 different titles coming out. And they'll always say, look, they'll tell the stores, you don't have to order everything. Know your customers, know what they want. And that's tricky because, one, you do have your regulars, but that also brings out new people that you don't see. Last year was crazy because there was the Taylor Swift exclusive on Record Store Day. And I bought, I think, 50 of them. And it's like, I should have bought another 150 of them. It was a sort of this perfect storm because the night before it was Taylor Swift's concert here in town.
Oh yeah.
So there were people that were go to the show, go out to eat, and then came to the store and waited for it to open like at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just this line of people, and there were most of the people that were buying the Taylor Swift record, they were just here for that. So there was some other crossover that would be interesting, with that. There was a Noah Kahan record that I should have ordered more of. And then I'm stuck with, like, I don't know, Dio Picture Disc, which I thought would be a good seller, and it was, but I just ordered too many. So knowing how much to order is tough. And, there are stores like Cactus that they're going to order everything in multiples of. And that amazes me. They're like the Taylor Swift of record stores. They get everything early, and I mean, there's nothing. I'm not suggesting anything's going on there. Just it's a cool store. When I'm ordering, and I already ordered obviously a month or so ago, trying to figure out what to get. It always happens, and it happened again this time. As the product actually comes in, and that's what I've been doing all day today is barcoding them and going through all that. I'm thinking, why didn't I order more of this? Why didn't And so I'm always second guessing, and then the tell will be on Record Store Day itself how well everything does. Most of the stuff I have is used. I'm trying to carry more new things. There's not as much margin on that, and you can't return it. In the old days, you could just send it back to the distributor. But it's good. I think it's like somebody was saying, do we need another picture disc copy or not another picture disc, but another copy, which happens to be a picture disc of Rumors,
Right.
And that's what, it looks cool. And if you're a fan, then yeah. There are some neat live albums that have come out on Record Store Day. So I always like that. And then they're starting to do more things that like miss that whole vinyl era, 90s, early 2000s, that they're issuing for the first time on vinyl. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So
if you weren't Pearl Jam, man, nothing was released on vinyl pretty much in the 90s. Like, they were the only band that was like, damn it, we're doing vinyl. We don't care. So remember what, Vitology came out a week early or a month early or something if you bought it on vinyl.
Well, what's interesting with Pearl Jam for Record Store Day, their new album Dark Matter came out the day before. It comes out officially the Friday before Record Store Day, but they have a Record Store Day version, special color press.
Yeah,
that's just for Record Store Day.
Well, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
I need to get the regular version. I haven't listened to any of it yet, but everyone's like, dude, this is like their best record in a long time. So I'm like, ooh.
Well, I know I have friends who look forward to Record Store Day every year and like will post their used finds. Like, they like to go digging on Record Store Day.
Yeah.
So
I'm just happy that I always want the things like the year like the Uncle Tupelo reissues came out, I could show up pretty late in the day and they were still there, and I was like, yeah. I'm not like, I need the one that's coming out day minute one. I was like, no, I'm good.
Sam is not standing on the sidewalk at 2 a.m.
But at least like that, again, yeah, I did grow up at a point where I remember sitting outside of Randall's in Galveston waiting for it to open to get concert tickets to run into the Ticketmaster thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was always a fun thing, and that's where we started getting where it's like even ticket shows we didn't really care about, or even if there was no chance of it selling out, we would do that just because the 10 other dudes who like insert band might be out there. It's like, dude, what's up?
Yeah.
That's kind of how you found friends, was just like, dude, dude,
you like Slaughter too?
right? You're getting tickets for like, I remember we do that for like Rage Against the Machine, which is funny because they ended up canceling that show. And
But yeah, that was like that whole like you had to be in the know. You had to like go seek it out.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had to go be on my computer at 9:00 ready to push the button. Like you had to go. I remember my friend's mom worked at the Ticketmaster booth at like J.C. Penney in the mall at Texas City at Mall of the Mainland. And so we were like, Miss Hart, we want to get tickets to this. So she'd have our order ready, and so she'd be able to get the tickets. And we got some great tickets, but like we had to like be really like it'd been your P's and Q's.
You
Man.
got someone on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's
it's just there's ups and downs. There's good things, bad things, but yeah, now you just join a Facebook group.
Well, yeah, but I think and it kind of goes to that whole like when it was harder to get that good ticket. Like you had more people that appreciated being there, and you didn't have the situation like we have at so many concerts now in Houston, where people are just there to take a picture. Like we get a lot of that now.
Yeah,
we've talked about that. I think you guys talked about it on the last podcast with Jeff. That people that interrupt the show just to take a picture.
Yeah,
and you're like, but I want to be here because I like this music. And so I feel like we lost kind of like that too.
Yeah, and it moves into the corporate landscape too.
It does.
Whatever gets us money, we don't care what you do. Just show up and pay for a ticket.
Yeah.
Even at the band's detriment, it's the record labels and venues are like, just come in, buy beer.
Yes.
I went to see Herbie Hancock just a few days, it was last week, and it's amazing that he's still performing. Just turned 84.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, one of the great, pianists and, connection to all the old guys. Sounded fantastic. And it was in Austin at the Paramount.
Okay.
And so the guy comes out, not Herbie, but the president of the Paramount Association, whatever, it's a nonprofit, and says, Herbie has one request. He said, when he comes out, you can take a couple pictures of him, but, please keep your phones away, keep them out of sight. And pretty much everybody did. did.
Yeah.
It was really amazing. And it was a great show because it felt like we were, listening to him perform and you're not seeing a screen everywhere. And not to say that I haven't done that before either, but it just has a different feel. And the other great thing about he came out, he said, I'm so old. He said, people expect me to play all my hits. He said, but I'm going to play whatever I want.
Nice.
And he sounded great. He did play some hits though.
Yeah, that is one of the kind of the annoying things about shows now is how many times have you been at a concert and right in front of you a person's recording the whole show? And I'm like, why? Why are you recording it? Like, are you going to post this to your Facebook? Because no one's going to watch it.
Man, I found some pretty good shows recorded on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, we'll look at John Moreland. It's like, do we know John Moreland that's, played with him back when he was like his first Houston shows and stuff. Now he's gotten pretty big and he's like playing at the Burl in Lexington, which is a cool room to play. Yeah. But they didn't do anything. It's a bar and, it's him and an acoustic. And basically, people we knew went. So he came out, played for a little bit. Headlining set, not cheap tickets. And people were so loud in the audience that he basically yelled his last two songs, pissed off, and then just got up and walked off stage and did not return.
I don't understand the talking during the show.
Yeah.
I mean, another pet peeve of mine would be the singing of other people, which is fine, but it's like, I don't come here to hear you sing. I want to hear the band.
Yeah, I agree with that.
See, I'm guilty of like the man. But I mean, I've been next to people who were yelling every word, and it was like, dude, you're singing louder than they are.
They have a
microphone.
like, what?
Or Wilco, I had that dude next to me who knew every word to every song. Yeah, there's things, but I just don't know. I don't know what it is about. Most of the shows we go to where people are talking incessantly are usually the drunk people.
Yeah.
Or during the opener, which I kind of get. If you don't know, you're only there to see the headliner. I mean, I understand people not being as courteous. But then when it's like the headliner and you're talking over them, it's like, why did you even come?
Right.
I've been at shows where the people were quieter for the opener than they were for the headliner. I'm like,
they're drunker.
What the hell?
Yeah. A little more sauced up.
Yeah. Like, God,
that's one of the problems of playing a place that, like, you play Heights Theater or even here and, you go down to Scout Bar or something. And you're like, dude, it's great. The good thing is beer's like normal bar prices. I mean, you go to Heights Theater, it's like $6-7. But, it's if you go to a brewery, you're paying $6-7 a beer. So it's like, it's not that bad. It's like $17, $18, $22 like at Toyota Center. And everyone's like, yeah. But then the problem is you're like, everyone's really drunk by the time the headliner comes on. That $60 bar tab turned into 8 beers instead of 2. And you're like, oh no. So that's always a rough point. All right, but anyway, we're running late here. Don't want you, especially since you weren't expecting.
No, I was just. I feel bad about that.
No, you're good. Trust me, I'm the same person. You're fine. So I guess we'll close it out. We'll give it to Health. And
all right, final
what you
question.
got?
Final question time.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
All right. So just asking for a list of 3 to 5 artists that you feel need more love that people should be listening to.
Even for you, like just weird things you found here at the store.
Yeah.
That
Okay, so not necessarily local.
No, they don't have to be
this can
local.
be
Okay, 'cause
anything that may not have a huge
I've been sitting here
draw.
trying to rack my brain, and
No, it's not local. It's just bands that you think more people should know about that you're aware that most people don't know
oh man,
about.
and I'm gonna think of this tonight when I'm going to sleep again.
It's going to be great.
I'm gonna have some good stuff to talk about.
He's going to post about it tomorrow.
I'm
By the way,
Yeah.
an addendum.
No, I need to post more often. 3 to 5 bands that you could use
You
some
feel
more
like-
attention.
yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, like mentally, I'm thinking through my 6,000 records that I have at home, 5,000, and I'm like trying to see the spines, and nothing's coming to me. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've let you down.
Well, how about this?
Completely.
How about if we modify the question and we ask you, like, what are the 3 coolest records you've gotten in here?
Yeah, right now, what are 3 records that you're listening to right now? Since that is what you do from day to day, what are 3 albums you've gotten recently that you're like, yeah, the people need to listen to this?
Well, so I started to think when you said the 3 coolest that I've gotten in, there was a Beatles Butcher cover, but that's just from what that means. It's not, I mean, it's a good album, but it's not like, but that was cool to see come in. There was a Big Boys 45 that came in.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That was sold for like $3,300.
Whew.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I know. And the bad thing about that is, not bad, but when it originally came in with this like really good 80s stuff, Jesus and the Mary Chain, there was a bunch of, I forget what else was in there. And then it was mostly 12-inch, and then there were a few 45s. And I look and it's like Olivia Newton-John, Michael Jackson.
Was it Let's Get Physical?
That sounds like a guilty pleasure you have there.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, no, there's nothing wrong with it, yeah.
I became an adult.
It's that video that's still, I can still see that video.
yes.
Yeah, I know. And then there was a couple of others that I didn't recognize. It was like a hand-drawn cover. It's a total punk-looking, thing. And I didn't really know it. And so I threw in my mind, another $10 or $15 on my offer for just those 45s because I already had everything else figured out. So several hours later, I'm looking through that and I'm like, okay, what is this? And I look it up. And the last time it sold for like $2,800. And I'm like, oh no, I've done, this record's worth a lot more than just a couple bucks. So I called the lady up. I said, listen, there was something in here. I didn't realize what it was. If you want it back, you can come get it. This is what it's sold for. And I think it can sell for more because that's been a while. Do you want to, work out a consignment kind of deal? And she's like, yeah. And so anyway, it did sell for, I think, $3,200 or $3,300.
Wow.
It was insane.
What was it?
Big Boys.
Okay.
Their first EP, it was like 500 copies. They all did the hand-drawn, colored sleeves. And, it was funny because when I told her what it was, she said, her and her husband, they used to go see him perform on 6th Street all the time.
Yeah.
And she said, I never really liked him. My husband liked him.
That's funny.
But I also think it's cool you were honest about it because you could have been a total dirtbag and be like, "Oh, thank you for all these," and made some money. But that's
it's a trip.
I couldn't live with myself or sleep at night if I hadn't done that. I almost feel like, can I look at what I have? That's the thing. I have so much come through here, and I'll have people come in and say, "Oh, I sold you these, a couple months ago." I'm like, you're gonna have to remind me what it was, because I don't know. There was an artist that I've known about, but just kind of, I hate to say this, just discovered like a year or so ago, Larry Coryell, jazz guitarist, fantastic. Mm-hmm. There was actually a Record Store Day release, I guess it was 2 years ago, of his first live album, and it was really good. And then so the other day, I got in this Fairyland. It's him in Switzerland, recorded live in Montreux. And it's just, I put it on, and there are times where I just put records on and I'm doing other stuff. But this was playing, and then whatever I was doing, I just kind of stopped, and like got up and went over to the stereo just to sit and listen to it. So that's one that that's come in recently that I've just like, and this one's not going out either. It's coming home with me, but I keep it up here to listen to it every so often.
Just check that out.
No, that's perfect, man. That's kind of what we're looking for. Stuff people can be like, oh man, this is where it's fun to do like a deep dive.
And he did a lot of fusion, so sometimes he's closer to jazz than he is to rock, but to me this was just, it's that energy of hearing the live album.
Yeah.
That's good. He's really something.
All right. So I guess one last thing, is there anything that we missed that you want to say?
Thank you guys for having me. And
thank you, man. Because like I said, it's, one of the things, I guess, to make the point at the very, very end, you go back to music as far as the recorded music. It's like record store people that are, like, hey, man, have you heard this? Or have you checked out this? Like, that's a huge thing. People who are in the industry pushing. There's so many. Yeah. There are people that are record store owners that people reference, like, in other states, like, oh, this dude who had this record store, had like Amoeba Records recommended these and they blew up here and stuff like that. So it's a huge thing. I found so much music because there were in stores at Cactus when I was in college.
Yeah, I was going to say bands do in stores.
So it's an important thing that, you kind of build that.
Well, that's something I've just started to do more of, in-store appearances. I'm glad that y'all were kind enough to come and
that was fun.
Perform here.
Asking.
It's just, I would just say, buy what you love, listen to what you love. Don't be afraid of Olivia Newton-John or whatever else, and go support your record stores. Not just here, all around,
I like that.
Cool. Man, thank you for coming and talking to us.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, y'all. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Music in the Minor League. Remember, if you like what you heard, please share it with a friend. Tell somebody. Let's help get the word out about all these musicians and folks in the music industry are really making it all happen. After the conclusion of this episode, Bart reached back out for the last question to give us a few things to recommend since he had forgotten in the moment. Those were Airborne Toxic Events, All at Once. He said, great song, good record. There's a single shot black and white video that is sweet. Next up, a cover of John Prine's Hello in There by Michael Stipe, Natalie Merchant, and Billy Bragg. Mel Brown's Chicken Fat, Mallow's Self-Titled, and Kay's Choice Cocoon Crash. Paradise in Me is also great as well. So thanks to Bart for following up with some more recommendations. That's really all we have for now. We appreciate y'all giving the podcast a listen. We don't have an outro song for this episode, so we're just going to say goodbye now, man. We'll see y'all next time. Be good out there. Later.